Mike Braun's property tax proposal, concerns about high school diploma changes, plus a new IU protest policy, and more. From the television studios at WFYI, it's Indiana Week in Review for the week ending August 2nd, 2024.
Indiana Week in Review is made possible by the supporters of Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.
This week, Republican gubernatorial candidate Mike Braun is adjusting his property tax reform proposal just days after he unveiled it. Braun was responding to criticism over the plan's uneven impact.
Braun's original proposal made major changes to the homestead deductions used to calculate property tax bills. Braun said it would reset everyone's bills to 2021 levels. But that wasn't true. For homes with values of at least $125,000, homeowners paying a tax rate of about 2.5% or more wouldn't see any savings under Braun's plan. And in Indiana's 10 most populous counties, which account for half the state's population, more than half of the tax districts had rates above 2.5%. So now, Braun says homeowners' tax bills would reduce to either what they paid in 2021 or the new calculation in his plan, whichever is lower. Still no word what the proposal would cost local governments, as property taxes largely pay for schools, police, and fire departments.
Is Mike Braun's property tax plan workable? It's the first question for our Indiana Week in Review panel. Democrat Lara Beck. Republican Mike O'Brien. John Schwantes, host of Indiana Lawmakers, and Ebony Chappel, market director for Free Press Indiana. I'm Indiana Public Broadcasting State House Bureau Chief Brandon Smith. Mike O'Brien, is it concerning that Braun had to change the plan within days of unveiling it?
It'd be more concerning if he realized there was something wrong with it, or maybe it was inequitable in a way he didn't expect it, and then he said, I don't really care, I'm not changing it. So like a lot of politicians do, no, I'm just going to dig in and say you're a liar. He's not doing that. He's moving, and that's just going to be the nature of this debate for the next 9 months. I mean, you're a State House guy like I am. No bill on the last day of session is the same as the bill it was on the first day, especially something this complicated. So Braun's kind of planted the flag on the first flag on property tax relief for homeowners. It's becoming incredibly predictable already. The political reaction to this is exactly what it was in 07, 08 when we were dealing with property tax relief the first time. It's like, my God, the local government, government can't afford that. You're picking winners and losers, and you're trying to measure the impact, and you're trying to balance the impact and figure out, what cut is too deep, and how do we get relief to homeowners, and which homeowners do we get relief to? Those are all the things that need to be talked about. But you're coming from the perspective of the government can't afford it, and you're running for office right now, and you're going door to door, you're going to a town hall, or you're in the diner and around the square, and some guy's sitting there with a property tax bill that went up double digits. He doesn't know why, nothing changed, or he's sitting on a bill he can't pay. You better have an answer for that. The answer better not be government can't afford it. And so that's the political lens that these guys are looking through right now. And we'll get into session and they'll do exactly what they did last time, which was balance the impact. And there has to be a downside impact on local government, of course, if you're going to provide any kind of meaningful tax relief to the people that need it.
Is that an unavoidable problem that local governments are it seems like we've started in the last year or so, we started with, hey, let's look at the entire state tax system because we've had all this money for so long in the state budget or in the state coffers, we can provide some relief and look at the whole thing and find a better system. And that's been winnowed down to, after hearing from Hoosiers, my property taxes, property taxes, property taxes.
Well, it's because they got their bills.
Yes, yeah, and it's responding.
We also don't have a lot of money.
It is responding to a direct problem. Is any property tax relief necessarily going to come at the cost of local governments?
Well, I think that oftentimes it does, and that's a challenge that local governments are faced with. And I mean, when we talk about local governments, we're talking about, your police officers, your firefighters, we're talking about your libraries. We are talking about these really important services that we all rely on and we use every single day. What I think, to Mike's point about how people are coming up in diners saying, look at my tax bill, we have a $2 billion surplus right now. If you really want to provide meaningful relief to people, stop sitting on this surplus and give the money back to the people.
It doesn't work.
Well, but
one, it's not nearly enough money, and two, it's one-time money, so they're going right back up.
Wait a minute, don't interrupt me, I'm talking. But here's the thing. To the average person who's sitting there talking, who's sitting there listening to these kind of things, they don't want to hear that it's going to be all worked out in the State House. They want to hear, what are you doing for me? What are you doing for me right now? They see $2 billion. They wonder, why am I not getting a cut of this? Meanwhile, Medicaid is suffering, right? You got a $1 billion problem there. You've got people who are really hurting. But at the same time, I guess I expected a little bit more from Mike Braun, frankly. I mean, he came out of this primary, he won it, hands down. I mean, you know you're going to be coming out of this. Why didn't he have a better fleshed out plan? I mean, the plan comes out on a Friday, which was super clumsy. It's clear that, I mean, who puts news out on Friday, right? Unless it's not bad news. Came out on Friday. It was really clumsy. He's had to walk it back. I mean, I just think that this is your signature proposal. It really needs to be fleshed out and vetted a little bit more.
The issue of property taxes will not be Mike Braun's alone, of course. Whoever the next governor is will deal with whoever's in the legislature next year, because this is clearly a problem everyone wants to address. It's easy, I think, to Mike's point, I agree. You can't tell the average person, well, the government doesn't have enough money, so we can't help you out. But is the harder problem for whoever's creating these solutions going to be, it's not so much government doesn't have the money, it's, well, we have to take money from your police department, we have to take money from your fire department, we have to take money from your schools. Is that going to be the problem for lawmakers and the next governor?
I think it is a problem for sure, but it is a solution that they should be equipped to speak to and to address with the best outcomes in mind for your average everyday Hoosier. I think, echoing the points that have been made, when you talk to your average everyday person and they're looking at their property tax bill, I would be one of those people as a new homeowner. They want to know that the government is going to operate with their best interest in mind. I think telling people the truth, this is what it takes in order to make that happen, I don't think that that is something that would be wrong or received negatively by your average everyday person. I think if there was ever a time to be very direct and open with the people about what's going on in an effort to provide relief, this would be the time.
We do that with schools, right? And that's
We
worked
do.
sometimes, and it's not worked sometimes.
It hasn't, but I think it's absolutely worth exploring, for sure.
In terms of Mike Braun's actual plan, obviously we'll see whatever if Mike Braun becomes governor, then whatever the legislature is going to come up with a plan for the most part. But the parts about that aren't getting talked about as much, because obviously they don't have the direct financial impact immediately. But the things I think that could be included in whatever the legislature does feels like the transparency part of it, which is on the referendums that locals do to raise the tax rate outside of the caps. We'll put on there, this is how much it would affect the median homeowner's bill in the area where you're trying to raise those taxes. Is something like that necessary going forward so that people have an understanding of what they're voting on?
I think any time you can equip voters and taxpayers with information, that's a benefit. That just should be a rule of thumb, I think, for government in a democracy. But you're right, the nuances are complicated here. We have a situation where office holders for legislative office, for state level office, and in some cases for local office, run on these platforms that the government that I want to be part of is so bloated and so inefficient, right, and they so squander your money that they can take a huge haircut financially without feeling it. Well, guess what? People say, oh, I like that message. I'm going to put you in office. And then you get in office, and then you realize.
You look at the balance sheet.
Look at the balance sheet. This isn't what I thought it was. Government is expensive. Roads cost money. Schools cost money. Libraries cost money. And
medical care costs
everything
money.
Costs money. Yeah. And we seem to have embraced this fiction, this fantasy, with many lawmakers or potential lawmakers aiding and abetting in this process of thinking that somehow that's all some smoke and mirrors game to get our money as taxpayers. It also, you talked about, it's no comfort to know that police and fire are hurting. It also doesn't afford Hoosiers much comfort to know that their tax bills, even in their heightened state, are still tremendously lower than they are on a lot of East Coast and West Coasts because of the constitutional caps that were put in place. So it's, and keep in mind also, as part of this all taxes are bad mantra, we've cut business taxes, corporate taxes. We have cut
the individual income tax.
We've cut the individual income tax. Something I mean,
Something has to
I'm no
give.
mathematician, but something, it's not as if roads all of a sudden got cheap, schools got cheap and are free. The money's got to come from somewhere.
All right, university leaders from across Indiana expressed concerns this week about proposed changes to the state's high school diplomas. That includes Purdue University's president saying the changes do not meet the school's admission standards. From WFYI's education desk, Rachel Fredette reports this comes as the state's education department seeks revisions to its initial proposal for diplomas.
Purdue President Monk Chang says the current diploma plan falls short of admission requirements in math, social studies, and world languages. He wrote this in a letter to Indiana's Education Department and the Commission for Higher Education. Chang also says Purdue students who graduated with a high school honors diploma perform well at the flagship research university. Under the current plan, the honors diploma won't be available. The Education Department plans to share a revised draft of the diplomas to the State Board of Education in August.
Lara, this is part of a larger shift in state policy toward high school, aiming to provide clearer pathways, yes, to higher education, but also to the workforce, whether it's trade school or directly into the workforce. Are these sorts of changes too far a shift?
I don't know if they're necessarily too far a shift, because I don't think that post-secondary education is probably right for everybody just right out of college, right? I think that's reality. And I think that the more that schools and work with unions, they work with businesses, they work with other folks to get kids into, and parents, get them into like good paying pathways. That's important. I think the broader concern about these education guidelines is that you are moving the goalpost to change because the outcomes that you've set for yourself you're not meeting, right? And I feel like the last several years of education reform by the Republicans have just been a failure, and we're now at the bottom of the barrel. We are now going to be, these folks want to take away a math requirement, which is kind of important, foreign language, which is also kind of important. I mean, skills you need to succeed in the coming economy, right? So I feel like it also is going to put an undue barrier on people who are parents of first-generation college students. Yeah. How do you navigate? I mean, I'm a parent of a high schooler. I can't follow half of this stuff. And I mean, I generally am somewhat up to date on these things. So how do you navigate this? Plus, what does this do to kids who are in the 21st Century Scholar Program, right? They sign up, they say they're going to go to college, they're going to get it paid for. How are they going to be impacted? So I think the fact that these colleges and universities are saying, wait a minute, this is not such a great idea. Let's have an opportunity to go over this and really look at this in detail is incredibly important, because what they have been doing isn't working, and you just can't change the metrics because you don't like the outcomes.
The barrier for, especially for first generation students, was something that some of the university leaders brought up in their feedback to the State Department of Education. It seems like we're setting kids up for a fall here with the changes as they are right now, which is, well, I was in high school, I thought I was doing the right thing, but it turns out I can't get into Purdue or IU. That feels like a problem that needs to be solved sooner rather than later, right?
I am the first generation.
Yeah, that's right. You are.
So I think is what we're seeing. We spent so much time prioritizing secondary or higher education to put kids on that path. That was how you were going to, climb the economic ladder. That's how you were going to, move up, in kind of the class system. That was the, that was the best future for you. For decades we spent doing that. And I think what we recognized not long ago when some of these changes were being brought was we're kind of leaving a whole group of kids without oh, cool, you have your high school diploma, go figure it out, you'll be a great plumber. But I don't know how to do that either. How do we create a pipeline? How do we connect employers and create a pipeline for that option?
And I think that's a laudable idea.
And that's what they're trying to do.
But it's all about the balance, right?
As a kid with a senior in high school who hopefully is getting an honors diploma and wants to go to Purdue, I really hope that works.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm in the same boat. I mean, and you're also looking at other kids who that post-secondary education might not be a thing for them, and they might want to do it somewhere down the road. And my concern is how schools and school systems will implement it, right? You're going to have some that are going to do it really well, and you're going to have some that are just going to kind of leave the kids hanging out there.
In terms of concerns from university leaders, assuming this problem isn't immediately solved in the next month or two, and that this maybe is a conversation the legislature has next year, at least broadly, given some in the legislature's attitude towards higher education leaders of late, Are concerns from higher education leaders going to carry much weight in the halls of the State House?
Well, the worst case scenario, and I'm being somewhat facetious here, is that the legislature says, we don't like the standards and the approach that Purdue and IU and the R1s are taking. We think that you should do this if you want to really create a scary scenario. Yeah. We know better than you, higher education, about what society needs to advance.
They'll listen in a budget session.
They'll pay attention. The problem is here, I mean, Mike had it right. We've had an emphasis, and again, not just in Indiana, as a society, go get a college education, because that is the ticket for many families and many individuals. And maybe that wasn't right. We know empirically that wasn't right for every student. And in fact, look where a lot of the jobs exist now. They're in the trades, and you can make a handsome wage in the trades if you have the right certification and credentials. So I think rightly the shift was to make sure there are pathways for those individuals too. The challenge is, though, when you shift, do you hurt group one? And it's a cliche to say, we often say, well, you can't be everything to everybody. But if there's one sector of society where you do need to be everything to everybody, it's probably education.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Because that's the one thing where everybody's different, and and I know it costs money. Getting back to what we just talked about, we're already going to cut and slash, but my goodness, you can't be everything to everybody on a budget.
I do want to ask, though, about the State Department of Education. I'm not going to pretend like this is an easy task that they are currently undertaking. Because if you look at some of the feedback from various university leaders, again, that came out this week, they can't even agree on some of these things. So, some of them said, oh, yeah, the new diploma, seals the type of diploma you're going to get. We really like that idea because it makes it clear, this is what this student was working towards. And others were like, I don't really like that idea at all. I think it could be confusing for universities to know exactly what they were going to get. So is that part of the problem for the state here, is that even these university leaders who have a lot of skin in the game here, or need to, they can't agree on exactly what the path needs to be.
I feel like that's part of the issue, but going back to the budget, it's either you pay for this now, you figure this out now, or you pay for it later. And I feel like the situation that we're in now is absolutely a pay for it later. I think that it is an effect of not investing in early childhood education. Absolutely. I feel like it's an effect of not empowering parents early on to be a part of their child's education. And frankly, just the confusing nature of public education and school choice in our community across the state. As a first-generation college student and also someone that graduated with an honors diploma, I can speak to the fact that it empowered me to be prepared not only for secondary education, but also for the workforce in general, whether that was a trade, and I did have a trade, whether that was working in more of a professional setting, because it was setting me up to know how to think. And I think that's the part that's being missed here. So, of course, you can lower the expectations, which is what I feel like is happening here. You can lower the expectations of what a student is supposed to accomplish in school, and then they leave, and now they are set up to fail. So I find it to be very unfortunate. I do think that there needs to be someone that steps up and says, we need to all get on the same page. Higher education, the state legislatures, the superintendents of school, being on the same page about what it is that we're expecting from these students and making sure that that's implemented early and often.
I was not an honor student. First generation, no honors.
All right,
Let Josh handle that.
But you're here.
Time now for viewer feedback. Each week we post an unscientific online poll question. This week's question is Indiana changing its high school diploma requirements too much? A, yes, or B, no. Last week we asked you who will win the presidential race. 84% say Democrat Kamala Harris, 15%.
It's a balanced audience.
15% say Republican Donald Trump. I mean, normally where our numbers are, that would suggest some pessimism even among Republicans for Donald Trump, and 1% say someone else. If you'd like to take part in the poll, go to wfyi.org/IWIR and look for the poll. Well, we're still on higher education. The Indiana University Board of Trustees passed a new expressive activities policy this week that creates new guidelines for when and how activities like protests can take place on campus.
The policy creates a ban on camping, which outlaws the liberated zone in Dunn Meadow that's been the site of pro-Palestinian protests for months. It also limits expressive activity to between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m., outlaws any such activity in parking lots and within 25 feet of building entrances, and bans stickers, markers, and spray paint from being used to mark university property, which includes sidewalks and lampposts. Trustee Vivian Winston voted against the policy. She tried unsuccessfully to change a passage that allows the university to immediately suspend violators from campus.
I think that they're being treated as guilty until proven innocent. And that doesn't go along with our law in the United States, where you're innocent until proven guilty.
The policy passed 6-3. It went into effect August 1st.
John Schwantes, we've been talking a lot about the situation at IU. As our resident, I don't want to say IU spokesman, but does this make the situation at IU better?
You know, under Coach Signetti, the football team, I think, could go great football season. That's what I'm focusing on. Let's start with the positive. I think this policy came from good intentions. That's the only thing I'm going to say positive. I think it's
a desire for clarity, certainly.
Maybe, but all it does is create ill will and mistrust and distrust and a sense of us versus them before school even starts. I just think it sends the wrong message, especially for a renowned institution, R1 institution that celebrates free speech. And I know you can say, we're doing this because we support free speech. Give me a break. There are problems here. And again, I think as a practical matter, let's look at the parameters of time. The First Amendment doesn't take a break necessarily. Yes, you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. I know I'll hear that argument. But there's no difference in my mind between this and saying you can pray as a student certain hours in the day, or go to church on a Sunday or Saturday, or maybe Wednesday evening for some services. Because you can express your opinions in those hours. Ain't going to happen. Another problem is that it says we're going to be content neutral. They have to make decisions. Look at IU Dance Marathon, which goes all night to raise money to fight cancer. What if somebody says, I want to do the same thing all night in a facility, and we're going to raise money for children in Gaza and Palestinian children? Or if it says no banners, symbols, flags flying. Does that mean that an American flag or a pride flag can't fly out of someone's dorm window temporarily?
Or the flag for the IU football team.
Or the IU football team. And they say you can only have these displays at events in conjunction with events that are university sanctioned. So here's another neutral problem. You're at the tailgate field south of the stadium. This one says, beat Purdue, Rose Bowl bound. This one says, take the money out of coffers of businesses that support violence in the Gaza. Somebody's got to make a judgment call. You can't just say messages are messages. It's just untenable. Beyond all that, you have the problems with the threat of criminal prosecution. For visitors, students will get screwed, and faculty who already are upset are going to get screwed. But visitors, say I go down there and I might engage in some protest, which is my right. I better choose a jurisdiction where there's a prosecutor who, like Monroe County's prosecutor, says these charges and arrests were constitutionally questionable. You can probably do it in Indianapolis. You can probably do it in Bloomington. Pick your other campuses wisely. Some prosecutors might not be so kind.
Theoretically, university leaders were trying to set up this policy to solve problems before they came up, because obviously what happened the last several months on campus didn't look good for the university and its leadership. With this policy, are they creating more problems for themselves?
I think they are absolutely creating more problems for themselves. When you look at institutions of higher learning around the world and from the beginning of time, these are areas where free speech, free thought, collaboration are encouraged. And frankly, it is what has helped us be the nation that we are today, for better or worse, depending on what perspective you're coming from. But it is one of the tenets of what it means to live in America and to be an American. So to see the response, because it is absolutely in response to a very specific type of protest. And I think that is where the problem comes in. If you're going to, target a very specific group, these students nowadays, this generation, they are not the type to back down. So if it's a fight that IU wants, then it's absolutely a fight that they're going to get.
That's because we're their parents, Mike. We've raised
God bless the parents.
I'm for you. That's what college is for. Keep them safe.
If there's one place where you should be able to protest,
I don't agree
it
with
feels
them.
like a college
I don't agree
campus.
with one single person in that campground who agrees with anything I think. But
All right, let's end on a lighthearted note. The Indiana State Fair kicks off this weekend. New attractions this year include a celebration of the Beatles' 60 years after they performed at the state fairgrounds, an outdoor movie theater, an Olympic zone, and duck swimming races. Lara Beck, should the Gaming Commission allow me to wager on the duck races?
You always give me these questions when
Yes.
I'm on infrequently. So,
Wait, I had to go talk my alma mater. You can talk about the Ducks.
Should I be allowed?
I gotta tell you, I mean, I probably am going to spend all my time in the dairy barn.
That's a good plan.
So I will miss that. But, if it can add some more revenue to our surplus, why not? Let's
Should
do
I
it.
be able to wager on the duck races?
it's the argument why it should be illegal. We're going to do it anyway. You might as well get it legal.
That's right. Money changing hands behind the scenes of the duck races.
Meanwhile, I'm focused on the dill pickle pizza. That is what I am so ready for.
Pickle guy.
Yeah.
I asked the governor today what he was on his bucket list for his final fare as governor. He said the Kool-Aid infused pickles
Wow.
and the peanut butter and jelly chicken wings. So
That's funny. The pickle is something that we love in
have to
Hobville.
eat.
So shout out to
That
him.
might not just be his last state fair as governor. That might be his last state fair.
All right, that's Indiana Week in Review for this week. Our panel is Democrat Lara Beck, Republican Mike O'Brien, John Schwantes of Indiana Lawmakers, and Ebony Chappel of Free Press Indiana. You can find Indiana Week in Review's podcast and episodes at wfyi.org/IWIR or on the PBS app. I'm Brandon Smith of Indiana Public Broadcasting. Join us next time, because a lot can happen in an Indiana week.
The opinions expressed are solely those of the panelists. Indiana Week in Review is a WFYI production in association with Indiana's public broadcasting stations.